Hello, everyone. This is Whitney Well from Starhearth Astrology, and I'm here for the weekly forecast, but also, I don't know, the weekly honestly showing up, truth telling in its forms. Um, Today is a day for truth as medicine. We have a retrograde Mercury conjoining Chiron, and that alignment speaks to the phenomena of when your heart breaks, when you learn the thing that you have tried not to know, um, you also break open. And my own version of that, at least in this instance, has been me spending a lot of time in the last season thinking about the phenomena of avoidance and how we talk about it and what it means, and all the things that get labeled as avoidance and what we lose when we label them and reduce them to that. Um, because, right, a lot of people accuse us of avoidance when we're not ready to have the conversation, or maybe we're not ever, or we can't find the right words, or, right, there's this kind of let's just take care of it. And if you're not, there's a level of cowardice or laziness as part of it. And I've definitely been on both sides of this. But as a mutable sign, as a predominantly mutable sign, part of what I have been doing in my own life is trying to deconstruct both the bias of cardinality and the bias of the fixed signs. And what I mean by that is cardinality always presuming that there's something to be done. You just do it. You just start it. You just do it. You just make it. You just change it. There's always something obvious to be done, and you just do the next thing. And then the bias of the fixed signs being the idea that there is one answer and there is one way of doing things and there is one way of being and there is a correct way. And if we can just find it and keep doing it, then all of the chaos and sadness and personal struggle will kind of melt away. And we will have found the essence of the thing, and then we can just be like the sun, right? The sun in Leo in a fixed sign can just discover the thing, and then we will have endless stamina in who we are, or what our career is, or what we're supposed to do, or the shape of our lives, right? That then we can be done with change, or we can control change. And the wisdom of the mutable signs is that that is never the case. The mutable signs are not a response like the cardinal signs, and they're not an answer like the fixed signs. The mutable signs are always in two worlds. They are ambivalent to their core because they are always weighing something, and that ambivalence tortures them or spurs them on as they try to fill a void until they understand that their essence is a process, not a product. And that part of what mutable signs do is they compost things. And composting is this very ambivalent thing, right? They're recycling, they're sorting, they're repurposing constantly. And to interrupt that and to try to, tell a Virgo that it's enough, or tell a Sag that they've gone far enough, they've asked enough questions, they just need to get to the answer, or um, right, to tell a Gemini that they've had enough conversations, that they've seen enough in the world, right? That enough is toxic to mutable signs, because what they need to do is be in their process. Now, they don't need to be constantly tortured in that process, right? In fact, it's the humility of understanding that they are part of the system and that they don't have to be the whole system. And so my reflection on this Mercury conjunct Chiron, right? And Mercury as ruling two of the four mutable signs, and Jupiter, which we'll get to later in the week, ruling the other two, is that mutability has to stay somewhat hidden, somewhat out of the center current. Mutability is the eddies on the sides of the river, the looping back around, the re-examining, the questioning, the feeling more deeply what is being cast off by the central current. Mutability is also gestational, right? What is born through cardinality, there's this kind of myth that it arises out of nowhere. And right, in our experience, that's true, because we don't remember things before we remember them, or we do, but in dreams, which are a mutable space. In fantasies and stuff outside of this central current of, I don't know, the collective consensual reality, we'll call it. And so the gestational quality of something is that it has to, darkness and hiddenness is necessary for a time period before anything has sufficient form to come forward. And if we call that gestational period avoidance, we are robbing it of its multifaceted qualities. We are robbing it of its ability to discover what it is through intuition, through instinct, through the ways of knowing of the feminine and the moon. And I am not talking about gender here. I am talking about the metaphorical structures within the psyche and the feminine's urge and way of knowing, which is not essentially symbolic or able to be articulated like the masculine and the Apollonian and the solar parts of our nature. And so understanding that, which is just something that hit me after dropping my kiddo off at school this morning. It was one of those realizations, where in your whole body sighs like this, and something has been rebalanced in your psyche to be like, oh yeah, oh, I can put my weight on that leg again. I can understand, because I've cleared out some area of shame. I can understand what that is and I can respect it. And now I can have a clearer idea of what it means to not be ready for a conversation, to still be carefully and meticulously going over the details of something. or what have you, whatever it looks like. So that's Mercury conjunct Chiron. Nietzsche has this beautiful quote that the quotation that the eras in our lives are defined by the moments when we rebaptize our badness for the best that's in us. Right? And so it's this kind of redemption motif of taking our hidden eighth house shameful places and really listening to them for what they are, rather than how they don't fit in. How, right? In these mutable places, the eddies work against the current. They're recirculating. This is a big week and it follows a big week. The eclipse of last week, the Saturn Mars conjunction of last week, the Cazimi of last week. These were potent. I know a lot of people had really crazy weeks last week. And this one is quite busy as well. And so, right, part of what we're doing this week is we are honoring the shift from Aries to Taurus, which is this transitional period of the shift from, right, in medical astrology, Aries is the head, Taurus is the neck. We are moving down into the body, right? The neck connects us to our body. And Taurus is the sign that is most embodied, most connected to the physical form. I'm going to remake the Taurus rising video because I feel like I'm understanding the archetypal path of Taurus rising is a lot better than when I made that video. Right, Taurus says like, there are real things all around us and we are part of the story. So much of healing from trauma is understanding on an experiential level what is real and what is not real. And inviting yourself back into the safety of the material world, because often, especially in abuse, especially physical or sexual abuse, but even emotional and even neglect, right? We learn that we are unsafe in our physical bodies, and Taurus must find a home in its body again, right? So that's part of the transition this week. And we start seeing these Venusian things pop up. So it's kind of a week of Venus as a, it's a week of Venus, because what we get is on Wednesday, we have Venus conjoining the North Node. So something very Venusian. Then on Friday, which is Venus's day, we have Venus conjoining retrograde Mercury. On Saturday, we have the conjunction of Jupiter and Uranus, which is arguably one of the biggest things that happens this year, in Taurus, Venus's sign. And then on Sunday, we have Venus conjunct Chiron. So lots of Venus and lots of Venus trying to negotiate from this place of Aries. And what Venus in Aries is so special because she can be such an advocate for herself, which normally we ask Venus not to do, right? Normally we use the traditionally Venusian to integrate things back together. But in Aries, she can ask for what she needs, what she wants, and she doesn't have to take all the responsibility for making everything else okay for everyone. And the only way you can do this is if you do not take on other people's stuff, right? If you try to control their reactions, if you take responsibility for their emotions, You cannot do the Venus and Aries thing. Venus and Aries needs to move freely, not taking on other people's stuff. If you try and do that and get what you want, you will drive yourself crazy. You will drive everyone else crazy. And that doesn't speak to it. We also have the sun on Friday moving into Taurus. So we're entering Venus's season. We're wrestling, right? Coming out of this eclipse season, which we will be out with the Scorpio full moon next Tuesday, a week from Tuesday. So what principle can we hold this week to kind of get us through the tumultuousness, maybe the feelings of intensity, right? We want a mantra to bring us back down, connect us back. And that mantra and that work is about discovering what our values are, our personal values, just for us, regardless of what's going on. What do we need and what do we value? And I'm not talking about our political values. The question that I'd like to ask my therapy clients about values is, what does a person you respect or you would respect, it doesn't have to be a real person, what do they do and what do they put their time and energy into? Tiny things, right? I'm not talking about like global things. I'm talking about, what do you think makes a good, responsible person? And there you will find your values. And it's not about other people, right? This is not about judging other people. This is about figuring out like what you really connect with. So, for instance, I don't care if anybody else in the world is a mother or a parent. I think it's great when people who do not want to have kids don't have kids. I really wanted to have kids and be a parent. And it is one of my values to show up for them in the best ways that I can and to put a lot of time and effort and energy into tending them. And I understand that, and that comes at the, sometimes the sacrifice of my career or other things. And yet, as a personal value, doing that is tremendously fulfilling, but also breeds self-respect for myself. And so that is kind of how I put my life in harmony, a Venusian thing, because if I were not doing that, it would be causing a tremendous amount of distress to work against my value. So I think, right, holding that question, and if you come up with answers, really kind of marinating on those answers. Understand what you are working for, what it is you care about. One more way to figure this out is when you are feeling anxious about something, anxiety shows you what you care about. So, right? If I am feeling financial anxiety, I know it's because I have a value around not wasting resources. Or, what have you. If I am feeling anxious to have a conversation, recognizing that that anxiety comes from my care for the other person and myself and my desire for us to have a more harmonious relationship or to speak to something, that is a value. So in all of your anxieties are hidden your values. And if you're feeling overwhelmed this week, understand that all of that overwhelm is coming from your tremendous ability to care. Okay. I'll see you next week. Thanks for listening. I'd love to hear your comments on this new style of providing the weekly forecasts. Please you can subscribe to my Substack if you want to do that. You can go to my website and book a reading so I can see your face and your chart and hear your story and hopefully offer whatever I can, whatever you need. Back to you. Okay. Hang in there, friends.